Hello students, welcome to the lecture on Human Resource Planning, and after the lecture we will be able to learn the following objectives. Explain the definition of HRP, understand the process for HRP, describe the forecasting techniques, explain the roles of HRP professionals, discuss the impact of technology on HRP, understand HR programming and barriers. Let's start with a brief introduction to human resource planning. Human resource planning means deciding the number and type of the human resources required for each job, unit, and the total company for a particular date in order to carry out organizational activities. It is a process by which an organization moves from its current manpower position to its desired manpower position. It is influenced by the strategic management of the company. Human resource planning should be an integral part of business planning. The planning process defines projected changes in the types of activities carried out by the organization and the scale of those activities. It identifies the core competencies required by the organization to achieve its goals. Human resource planning interprets people's requirements in terms of stalls and competencies.
Since hiring an employee is a complex and expensive effort, every new position in your company should be carefully scrutinized against an opportunity to outsource it or automate the job. Required expertise should include not only technical skills but also communication ability and overall attitude. All positions have to be incorporated into the communication plan. Absence of such plan leads to ever-growing paperwork and a tendency towards staff inflation. Offered compensation is by far the most important part of the job description. It provides important input for the financial plan, and it sets a foundation for employees' motivation. Too often, new employees are underutilized because there is no workplace for them. Hence, a job description should include specification of all necessary equipment, such as shovel, computer, or an extra office space. Hiring headhunters to hire your staff should be your last resort. Your company should constantly seek potential job candidates, profile them, and keep records of these activities. In this case, by the time you introduce a new opening for the market, you will have a pool of pre-screened applicants. A calendar of such activities is a very desirable component of the HR plan. If you feel you must give a test to your applicants during an interview, please do. What is far more important, however, is psychological profiling. A person with a good GPA and gloomy attitude should not be hired. Extending a job offer is the pinnacle of the negotiation process. A well-developed compensation plan will make your negotiation position much stronger and save you from overpaying for your key team members. A good HR plan should include an outline of orientation procedures in order for employees to understand every member's zone of responsibility. Performance evaluation requires a carefully planned set of variables which should be measured. Aside from some obvious factors like revenue generated or volume of production, there are some less evident considerations like customer satisfaction or percentage of spoilage. The HR plan should explicitly outline such variables for every position or set of positions. In order to maintain the high morale among employees, evaluations must reflect management objectivity and have clear, measurable benchmarks. Hence, the outcome of an evaluation should be predictable for employees. Last but not least, evaluations are a link to the motivational system, since constructive feedback enforces employee morale. Positive attitude is what makes the difference between a business and the business. That's why constructive feedback during evaluations is so important. Reasonable pay is a key component of employee satisfaction. Since salary is a major benchmark for choosing an employee, you have to constantly monitor your competition and adjust your pay system according to the market. In the meantime, all your changes are to be run through the financial plan in order to be sure that you will still be in business after such adjustments. It is equally important to communicate to your employees their growth opportunities. Seeing a clear promotional path boosts morale and secures company loyalty. The promotion path should include a course of preliminary training. Through participation in this training, team members will develop necessary skills, along with a loyalty to your company. By providing management skills training to your employees, you hit several birds with one stone. First, you evaluate their ability to be a manager prior to promoting them. Second, you develop necessary skills, communication skills being primary, and you help your people become a better fit for each position. Such kind of training reduces your demand for the key positions, and you reduce your risk of hiring complete strangers. Boosting technical expertise is also beneficial, and those employees that don't fit in managerial positions will create more value for your company performing more complex and responsible jobs. Constant training is a part of a solid compensation plan and provides an important input for the financial plan.
Let's now get to know the meaning and definition of HRP. In simple words, HRP is understood as the process of forecasting an organization's future human resource demand for and supply to meet the objectives such as the right type of people in the right number. After this process, only the HRM department can initiate recruitment and selection process. Human resource planning is the process by which an organization ensures that it has the right number and right kind of people at the right place, at the right time, capable of effectively and efficiently completing tasks that will help the organization achieve its overall objective. Human resource planning then translates the organization's objectives and plans into the number of workers needed to meet those objectives. Coleman has defined human resource planning as the process of determining manpower requirements and the means for meeting those requirements in order to carry out the integrated plan of the organization. Let's talk about the need for planning. The need for planning arises mostly due to the fact that modern organizations have to survive, operate, and grow in highly competitive market economics where change is the order of the day. The change may be either revolutionary or evolutionary. The different areas of change include change in technology, change in population, change in economic structures and systems, change in policies of government, change in employee attitudes, behavior, etc. If used properly, it offers a number of benefits, creates a reservoir of talent, prepares people for the future, expand or contract, cut cost, succession planning. Now, let's discuss about the types of plans. Philosophy. The organization's role that they wish to play in society in terms of philosophy. The philosophy of the company should have clarity of thought and action in the accomplishment of economic objectives of a country. The philosophy bridges the gap between society and the company. Purpose. Every kind of organized group activities or operations has a purpose. For example, the purpose of the bank is to accept deposits, grant loans, and advances. Objectives. Objectives are the ends towards which organizational activity is aimed. Every department has its own objectives which may not be completely the same as of the other department or organization. Strategies. Strategy is the determination of the basic long-term objectives of an enterprise and the adoption of courses of action and allocation of resources necessary to achieve these goals. Policies. Policies are general statements or understandings which guide or direct thinking and action in decision-making. However, all policies are not statements. Procedure and rules. Procedures are plans that establish a desired method of handling future activities. They detail the exact manner in which a certain activity must be accomplished. Programs. These are complexes of goals, policies, procedures, task assignment rules, steps to be taken, or sources to be employed, and other elements necessary to carry out a given course of action. Budget. A budget is a statement of expected results in terms of members. It may be referred to as a numerical program. Cash budget, sales budget, and capital expenditure budget are some of the examples of budget. Corporate planning and human resource planning. The human resource plan is a part of the corporate plan. Without it, there can be no human resource plan for human resources. If there are several imponderable and unpredictable objects in the corporate plan, there will be difficulties in human resource planning. Whether or not the human resource planning meets the requirements and is in tune with reality depends on the clarity of goals and the validity of the stated assumptions. The other important point is the time frame in defining the future. Let's now discuss the human resource planning process. 1. Organizational objectives and policies. The HR plans to be made based on organizational objectives implies that the objectives of the HR plan must be derived from organizational objectives. Specific requirements in terms of number and characteristics of employees should be derived from the organizational objectives. 2. Examining external and internal issues. External and internal issues are the forces that drive human resource planning. An issue is any event or trend that has the potential to affect human resource outcomes, such as employee motivation, turnover, absenteeism, the number and types of employees needed, and so forth. External issues are events or trends outside of the organization, such as workforce demographics and technology. Internal issues refer to events or trends within the organization, such as business strategy, organization's structure, and company profitability. 3. Workforce demographics. Potentially important external issue is the composition of the national workforce. Specifically, there are likely to be changes in the social gender and age composition of the workforce. Asians will comprise a large percentage of the workforce in the future. Women are also expected to comprise a large segment of the workforce than in the past. 4. Future organizational capabilities and needs. The second step of the human resource planning process involves an analysis of future organizational or personal capabilities. Capabilities include the skill level of employees, productivity rates and number of employees, etc. Organizations may use varieties of procedures to estimate the supply. These procedures are generally categorized as either quantitative, which use mathematical or statistical procedures, or qualitative, which use subjective judgment approaches. 5. Implementing human resource program to address anticipated problems. In this step, the organization must determine the gaps between future capabilities and future needs, and then employ the necessary human resource programs to avoid the problems arising from these gaps. Following basic steps are recommended to obtain employee acceptance. Communicate need for the program. Explain the program. Explain what is expected of the employees. Establish feedback mechanisms. Now, we will talk about forecasting techniques. HR demand forecast. Demand forecast is the process of estimating the future quantity and quality of people required. The basis of the forecast must be the annual budget and long-term corporate plan, translated into activity levels for each function and department. Demand forecasting must consider several factors, both external as well as internal. The external factors are competition, economic climate, laws and regulatory bodies, changes in technology, and social factors. Internal factors include budget constraints, production levels, new products and services, organizational structure, and employee separations. HR supply forecast. Personnel demand analysis provides the manager with the means of estimating the number and kind of employees that will be required. The step for the management is to determine whether it will be able to procure the required number of personnel and the sources for each procurement. This information is provided by supply forecasting. New venture analysis. New venture analysis will be useful when new ventures contemplate employment planning. This technique requires planners to estimate HR needs in line with companies that perform similar operations. For example, a petroleum company that plans to open a coal mine can estimate its future employment by determining employment levels of the other coal mines.
Here you see a picture of the recruitment and selection process. The process begins by determining the positions that have to be filled through personnel planning and forecasting. Next, the organization must identify qualified candidates through recruitment of candidates within and outside the company. These candidates then undergo the selection process, which may include such things as interviews and background checks. Once the selection process is complete, then the company reviews the candidates and makes an offer. In today's topic, recruitment, we will cover the first 3 boxes shown here. The rest of the diagram will be covered in the next chapter. Personnel planning is the process of deciding what positions the firm will have to fill and how to fill them. A specific form of personnel planning is called succession planning. Here, organizations are looking at and planning for how they can best replace top management positions if and when the need arises. A key issue in planning is forecasting the overall personnel needs of the organization. Here, one is trying to estimate the size of the staff needed to meet the organization's goals. There are 2 main types of forecasting: trend analysis and ratio analysis. Trend analysis uses previous employment figures to predict future needs. A ratio analysis focuses on the ratio of some causal factor, like sales volume, and the number of employees required. So if the organization wants to increase the sales volume by 5%, how many more salespeople do we need to achieve this? Here is the graphical representation of forecasting. The hospital has previous data on the number of nurses needed based on the number of beds they have in the hospital. Based on this chart, you can see the relationship between the number of beds and the number of nurses needed to care for the patients in those beds. From this data, we can forecast the number of nurses we need as the hospital continues to grow. Once you have determined how many positions are available, you need to decide if you can staff these open positions from within. To make this decision, the organization must know the knowledge, skills, and abilities of their employees. Organizations can use qualification inventories, which are manual or computerized records listing employees' education, career and development interests, language, special skills, etc. They can go one step further and create personnel replacement charts that show the present performance and promotability for each position's potential replacement. Here is an example of a replacement chart for a top management position. As you can see, there are 3 people that are next in line for the promotion, but some are more qualified than others. For example, if the division vice president were to resign today, then Jones is the only one who is qualified to take over the job immediately. The other 2 possibilities still need further development or are not promotable. Information like this can be very helpful for organizations in planning for things like retirement or in reacting quickly to an unforeseen resignation. It is interesting to note that there are computer programs that help organizations maintain information on their employees and help them construct these types of replacement charts. These are known as human resource information systems and can be used to track the qualifications of hundreds or even thousands of employees. Many organizations cannot survive without hiring externally. Thus, companies must also try to determine the supply of qualified individuals outside the organization. There are 2 major determinants companies can use. First is the expected unemployment rate. When the unemployment rate is low, it means that few people are out of a job. This translates to fewer people to fill vacant positions. In response, an organization will have to increase their recruitment strategies in order to fill any of their opening positions. However, if the employment rate is up, then there are lots of people looking for jobs, and in some cases, the company can sit back and watch the applications roll in. The second most common way businesses forecast the supply of external candidates is looking at the availability of qualified people in specific occupations such as nursing or information technology.
Here we will get to know about the roles of HRP professionals. The HRP professionals have to perform the following roles that may be divided into 3 categories. 1. Administrative role. Managing the organizational resources. Employees' welfare activities. 2. Strategic role. Formulating HR strategies. Managing relationships with managers. 3. Specialized role. Collecting and analyzing data. Designing and applying forecasting systems. Manage career development. Let's talk about the impact of HRP. The HRP itself is a process of determining human resources needs in the future and of monitoring responses to these needs. HRP links a company's business plans and broad objectives with the specific programs and other HRM activities. Organizations need to learn to forecast HR needs more effectively. More analytic techniques driven by strategic planning are vital. Organizations must learn to manage employee performance more effectively. Even though performance measurement is complex and ill-defined, it is critical to effective management for this very reason. Organizations must also learn to manage careers of their employees more effectively. Now, we will discuss about the impact of technology on HRP. Advances in computer technology have offered organizations new opportunities to enhance and streamline their processes. Computer-aided design, CAD, CAD, and computer-aided manufacturing, CAM, CAM, reduce human resource involvement and shrink the cycle time. Advances in information technology have reduced efforts required in impacting, retrieval, processing, and sharing of data. Accurate and timely information can be made available to different levels of management for decision making. All these changes in technology result in a change in occupational and skill profile of manpower. Different manufacturing technologies have different skills required to design, operate, and maintain the machines and equipment. Also, the same technology can have a different impact on different categories of workers and industries. The actual skill implications of technology change will depend on management policy for deployment of manpower, attitudes, bargaining strength of the union, ability of manpower to adjust and adapt to the new technology. Let's discuss about HR programming. Once an organization's personnel and supply are forecast, the two must be reconciled in order that vacancies can be filled by the right employees at the right time. HR programming assumes greater importance in the planning process. HR plan implementation. Implementation is nothing but converting an HR plan into action. A series of action programs are initiated as a part of HR plan implementation. Some such programs are recruitment, selection and placement, training and development, retraining and redeployment, the retention plan and the redundancies plan, control and evaluation. The HR plan should include budgets, targets, and standards. It should also clarify responsibilities for implementation and control, and establish reporting procedures which will enable achievements to be monitored against the plan. These may simply report on the numbers employed against establishment and on the numbers recruited against the recruitment targets. They should also report employment costs against budget and trends in wastage and employment ratios. Now we will get to know about the barriers to HRP. The HR practitioners are perceived as experts in handling personnel matters, but are not experts in managing business. People question the importance or making HR practices future-oriented, and the role assigned to HR practitioners in formulation of organizational strategies. The HR information often is incompatible with other information used in strategy formulation. Strategic planning efforts have long been oriented toward financial forecasting, often to the exclusion of other types of information. Conflict may exist between short-term and long-term HR needs. For example, there arises a conflict between the pressure to get the work done on time and long-term needs, such as preparing people for assuming greater responsibilities. There is conflict between quantitative and qualitative approaches to HRP. Some people view HRP as a number game designed to track the flow of people across the department. Non-involvement of operating managers renders HRP ineffective. HRP is not strictly an HR department function. Successful planning needs a coordinate effort on the part of operating managers and HR personnel. Now, in the end, let us summarize what we have learned in this lecture. Human resource planning is the process by which a management determines how an organization should move from its current manpower position to its desired manpower position. Human resource planning involves considering the staffing resources needed to meet the organization's business objectives. The historical analysis will show how the role of HRP in the firm has changed over time from primarily being concerned with routine transactional and traditional HR activities to dealing with complex transformational ones. The mobilization and utilization of labor during the war had a great impact on the development of the personnel function. The contemporary approach to human resource planning is to determine the quality, quantity of personnel needed, and determine the cost or prepare a budget for the continuous and smooth function of the organization.